Morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Lancet seminar. We are just waiting for a few more attendees to join the call, and we'll kick it off shortly. All right, I think we are good to go. So again, welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining today's Lancet seminar, which is our usually an annual event, but with the advent of COVID, we've gone to producing 2 or 3 of these a year now. Last year there was obviously a heavy focus on COVID-19, and for the first one this year, given what we've seen around the industry, there's been many presentations. We thought we would take a break from COVID presentations and tackle another topic, which is obviously extremely important in the life insurance industry, that being the idea of automation and the use of third-party data. I firstly just want to welcome, in addition to our South African attendees, we have got colleagues from India as well. Obviously, with these seminars now being virtual, we have the ability to include colleagues from around the world. So welcome to our Indian colleagues. I just obviously want to point out that the content of the presentation is intended for a South African market, but obviously many of the principles that we bring across will apply to your market. So we hope the presentation is valuable to you as well. This is a slightly different Lancet seminar in the sense that we don't have any speakers from Lancet, but I think that you will see as the presentations progress that Lancet's role in what we're presenting will be quite apparent. Our first speaker today is Patrick Bracher from Norton Rose Fulbright. He has years of invaluable experience and an in-depth knowledge of insurance law, that being pure insurance law, regulatory aspects, commercial aspects, financial transactions, regulatory law, and constitutional human rights law. His knowledge also embraces related financial services, such as financial intermediaries and medical schemes. He advises many of South Africa's life and non-life insurers, as well as the South African Insurance Association and Lawyers of London in South Africa. He is the external examiner of the University of South Africa's postgraduate insurance courses, and his commercial knowledge is supplemented by a wide-ranging knowledge of administrative law, constitutional law, and common law, and a practical understanding of the law relating to consumers, such as the National Credit Act, the Consumer Protection Act, and very importantly, and what we're going to focus on today, the Protection of Personal Information Act, or POPIA as we know it, as well as the National Health Insurance Bill. So we engaged Patrick recently on the issue of automation and the use of third-party data, because it's something that we've received many questions on, and it's obviously something that insurers have got an appropriate level of fear about, given the implications of the misuse of data and the POPIA Act actually now soon to be enforced. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Patrick and thank him. There will be Q&A directly after his talk, so please post your questions in the Q&A section, and we look forward to hearing what Patrick has to say. Thanks, Patrick.
Sorry, I double-clicked. Here I am. Thank you very much. That's a nice introduction. Thank you to this session. I'm flattered by the fact that there are 174 attendees. I always find these presentations quite interesting because I don't often have a hall full of 174 people, half of whom are in their pajamas, I suppose, but it's always an interesting insight into life. What I'd like to do is to go through the slides that I presented, and Ian, if you could put those up for me. Let me just do my own presentation here. There we go. Can everybody see my slides? Because I'm not seeing them myself. Ian?
Yeah, we can see them.
Can you see them? Oh, good. Okay, that's excellent.
No, sorry, they've just disappeared. Just try them again.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. Now,
Okay,
if you just full screen. Oh, hang on. There we go. Just full screen those.
I'd like to just start with an introduction, and that is about data protection in general, because there are three things I want to say at the start. First of all, we all know this is the information age, and we know that the legislation is way behind technology. If you follow the revelations from the CIA of Mr. Snowden, who's now exiled in Russia, he said that everything you ever produce online is recorded and stored entirely forever. So the data protection laws around the world are a bit behind that. But what I want to say as an introduction is that when you look at data protection, the people who get into trouble are the people who lose their confidentiality. It's the people who get breached and suddenly on the dark web or somewhere else appears all their private information. And that is the big risk. If you have the proper protections of your information, it's seldom that you will get the attention of a regulator. There will be an occasional policyholder who complains about something that happened or didn't happen. But generally, the trick is to make sure you've got proper protection and proper backup. The third thing I want to say about it is that it's not an unpractical law. People, when it first came out, and I had fights with my colleagues even, thought it was all about consent. Well, it's not all about consent. The POPIA Act, the Protection of Personal Information Act, which comes into force at the beginning of July, recognizes that business has to be done. And I'll explain to you as we go through how that in fact happens, because it's not just about consent, and if you don't have consent, you can't do things. You can carry on business quite a lot of the ways that we've always done if you protect the information. That's the fourth thing I can add, because that came into Matthew's introduction, is that although this is South Africa focused, the Protection of Personal Information Act in South Africa is really based largely or quite a lot on the general data protection rules of the European Union. And those have been the model throughout the world. So a lot of what I say here will be familiar and translatable across borders. Now I've lost my, oh, there we go. Can we have the next slide?
So Patrick, you're in control of the slides, so you're going to.
Am I? Yeah. I thought I was in control of the slides, but
you're slow.
It's not working from my end.
Just, I think, just maximize that the view so that. No, we've lost it again.
If we go F5 into presentation mode.
Have you got them?
They're still shared.
They're not moving on in my control here.
Okay. I think maybe just use your mouse and just click on slide number 2 there for people to see it.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Let me just start with the presentation. Now, there are risks and challenges with the insurance and reinsurance industry because of the the sheer volume of personal information that insurers and reinsurers control. And that is why this talk is so important, and recognizing what your rights are is so important. And reinsurers collect personal information directly, seldom collect personal information directly from policyholders. So when we're talking about reinsurers, you'll find that they are generally gathering personal information about individuals from insurers and from other service providers, and that has some angles which I will come to. The processing of health information prevents special risks because it is sensitive information, it's special personal information, but I'll come later to the fact that the insurance industry has a special exemption in regard to health information. Not forgetting that there is a significant amount of other information that insurers and reinsurers gather. If you look at the technical possibilities of consolidating data sets across multiple products, you'll see that people like Discovery have a bank, a health vitality, they have an insurance company, they have a long-term and short-term insurance company, and those multi-data sets are now being used to gather information from all sorts of sources. And one of the questions is always to what extent you can take information from third parties and then, having taken that information, pass it on to others. So POPIA, which comes into force in June, sets out rules for lawful processing of personal information. And the one thing, by the way, that South Africa law differs from the GDPR is the fact that it also protects the personal information of corporations, not only individual persons. And it's to the extent necessary, and nobody's quite worked out to what extent corporations need protection, but it doesn't mean because you're insured or the way you gather information comes from a corporation rather than an individual, that POPIA doesn't apply. Now, it refers to a responsible party and an operator, and the responsible party is the person who gathers the information for their own purposes, and that will be an insurer and reinsurer, and Lancet would gather information for its, although it's doing it in order to pass the information on to an insurer or reinsurer, it is being paid to gather that information and has full obligations as a responsible party to ensure that that information is processed according to the law and protected against intrusion. And an agent is an operator. An operator is an agent for the responsible party, and that is typically someone who may run an external cloud or an external database on behalf of somebody on some outsourced basis. It's the responsible party who is the responsible party. It's well named, and they're the people who have to look after the information. There's not many obligations on the operator because they fall into the area of the responsible party. And obviously that means that when you find a responsible party